Hello, it is 1800 right now. I'm a bit late for the show. 1 second, I have to turn off the microphone. Okay, and it's a pleasure to see you all. It's a pleasure to start this show today. And the show today is the 7th episode of RegInt. And I'm still trying to figure out how to call up the comment section on LinkedIn and on YouTube. I'm gonna do that by myself today because my good friend and colleague Thea today, she won't be here. So 1 second. This is the preview of today's episode. News Signals AI Revelations Reviewed, 7th episode, and we're gonna click through it and have a look. So you know me, you know Tia, and unfortunately for us, Tia is traveling. She is good for her. She's been traveling like around these parts of the world. It's somewhere in North America, and she's, as far as I can see, she is enjoying her stay in North America, somewhere between California and Mexico at the time. So next episode will be the 8th episode, will be around late November. And if you want to get acquainted with the previous episodes, the previous ones, especially the last one about facial recognition or the copyright episode that both got a lot of attention, you can have a look at our Linktree page, linktree.ee/regint. You can find everything in one place. As mentioned, next episode somewhere in late November, and that's gonna be great. But anyway, have a look at what is coming up next. News Signals. We will provide you with a lot of news, with a lot of summaries and insights into what has been going on over the last 4 weeks in AI. To be honest, that was challenging, this episode specifically, because not only I could not rely on the support of my colleague, but also because the news around AI regulation, law and technology, they were just like exploding. I have a job that could explain that. So in the end, it meant for me to go through around 350 news articles, papers, and newsworthy posts on different social media sites. And I think I have a great selection of news that I can present and that you might like. Okay, without further ado, let's have a look at the first article. It was on VentureBeat. Today's AI is alchemy, not science, what that means and why that matters. And what I especially liked about this article is that it criticizes some of the language used when people are talking about AI, the anthropomorphization, that AI is thoughtful or sentient or has reasoning or sparks of intelligence. That is very difficult, and it is not neutral and scientific language. And a lot of this language is actually presented in a certain way, a very convincing way, in current public reports, for instance. There is a critical view of the way we currently talk about artificial intelligence. This paper, this blog post by the Carnegie Council, the two authors, who decides what conversations are allowed about artificial intelligence. This mentions a lot of things that are going on currently, especially some open letters. We have seen them before. And yes, so who is deciding who the decision makers are? Where's the real power in these conversations? Who runs and finances the high profile events that set the narrative in the news or otherwise? Those who voice concerns, according to the authors of this paper, risk being marginalized as anti-innovation, anti-growth, and anti-future. And who's been following the news over the last 2 days has seen a lot of this language being brought up in several discussions, mainly in the US. But yeah, we are not silent. We are here to talk and discuss, and I believe I am skeptical of many things in the current hype, but before you voice an opinion, before I voice my opinion, it is good to acquire some knowledge so that my opinion can be smart and not just superficial. So let's dive deeper into what is currently happening and who has said what and what is going on. There is, at first, a very interesting paper. It is about 150 pages long. It's a very dense presentation. It is online. As always, you can download the PDF with the presentation here, and you can click on the different pictures, and you will be they are linked to the sources, and you can read the original sources by yourself. So 150 pages, and I chose some of those pages of the State of AI report, very recent, like a week old. And it is really interesting because it's talking about a lot of those things that we had been addressing during previous RegInt episodes. So are we running out of human-generated data? You might remember our, I guess, second episode. Also, Llama sets off a race of open-ish competitive large language models, like the open source versus the OpenAI situation. And then it talks about, at a later later pages, it talks about the pro-innovation approach or light touch approach, skepticism of large-scale regulation. And we will see how that turns out in the US and in Europe. I really like the report. I really like the State of AI report. It is generally optimistic, and even though it uses some of the AI hype language and should be taken with a grain of salt, it is very comprehensive. If you want to have an overview of the current state of, let's say, meta science, then you should definitely have a closer look at this paper. There's also a very recent paper. It is called Policy Brief Generative AI, and it's from the UK, from Cambridge University and others. And I particularly like this one because it is a very sober analysis of the infrastructure, the alleged productivity gains of the technology and the economy of generative AI. And I don't want to promise too much, but let me quote. However, it cannot be taken for granted that the adoption of generative AI will inevitably lead to whole economy productivity growth. Indeed, the digital innovations of the last 15 years have had no discernible impact on measured UK productivity. That's different from what we usually read in newspapers. So, meanwhile, again, quote, meanwhile, most capital investments in generative AI companies to date have been at the foundation model and infrastructure layers. At the application layer, the majority of venture-backed companies are developing chatbots, virtual consumer services assistants, writing tools, and features for video games. And then this part I like most. While these may reduce operating costs in contact centers and increase copywriters' output and gamers' playtime, they are unlikely to have a transformative economic impact. And again, policy discussions has focused on how the UK could become a world leader in the development of novel commercial foundational models. We doubt that this is realistic, despite the UK benefiting from a world-leading research base in underpinning technologies. Training foundation models requires vast amounts of compute, and little compute capacity is available in the UK. That having said, this is maybe the reason why France is stepping up and why Germany subsidizes the production of chips. So French startups want more compute in their country. And again, I quote from this article here from Sifted: "It is important for sovereignty reasons, very important in France, that GPUs are on French territory because otherwise access could be cut at any time." Co-founder of a Paris-based AI startup, Dust, says. And if these are products that are necessary to power society, it creates a dependency. So, I mean, one could argue the fact that they say that like these products power society, but in the end, that's at least following the current hype talk around generative AI. So, new data centers in France, actually. Okay, in 2023, France grappled with its most severe summer drought on record, courtesy of plummeting groundwater levels. But of course, why address a looming climate catastrophe when we can all divert our attention to the latest AI craze? Well, maybe France should not entrust Microsoft with those new data centers, because Microsoft's data centers in West Des Moines, Iowa, guzzled massive amounts of water last year. Associated Press reported this earlier in October. They used the water to keep cool while training OpenAI's ChatGPT-4. So critics point out a further inconvenient detail, that this training, the cooling, the use of water happened in the midst of a more than 3-year drought in Iowa, further taxing a stressed water system that's been so dry this summer that nature lovers couldn't even paddle canoes in local rivers. And I really like this quote from the article: "It's a recipe for disaster. Iowa citizens told Futurism ChatGPT is not a necessity for human life, and yet we are literally taking water to feed a computer." I really like that sentence. It contrasts with the opinion of the French AI startup CEO, who may think that the lives of our people depend on generative AI. Anyway, what is generative AI? There is a lot of discussion about that, and like there is a lack of transparency. And hat tip to Katharina Körner. Katharina Körner, she is on LinkedIn. You can, if you like open the PDF, you can click on her profile picture here, right in the upper right corner. Thank you for pointing out this very recent, like I guess it appeared yesterday or the day before yesterday, article. And Katharina found this gem and posted about it. Enough with the criticism, let's look ahead. A whole group of researchers at Stanford's HAI, they released this wonderful paper titled Transparency Index for Foundation Models. And what they said is basically companies dabbling in the foundation model realm seem to be adopting the motto, less is more, when it comes to transparency. The index, this index, Transparency Index, is used or was developed by scrutinizing 100 transparency nuances from the model's birth to its workings and downstream uses. And when the researchers evaluated 10 of the big players in the foundation models with their 100-point checklist, the results were, let's say, less than stellar. The top scores hovering between like kind of 47 and 50, 55, 54, they hardly warrant standing ovations. But have a look yourself. I like the close look at the foundation model supply chain. You can see that on the right side of this slide here. So for that alone is worth looking at this paper. Also, it is unfortunately quite long, but also very detailed on a lot of technical details around foundation models. So That having said, we like the issue of copyright always comes back in like every episode. We have to cover new developments in the legal sphere. So there is a very recent lawsuit. I guess it was also yesterday or the day before yesterday. And Universal Music has initiated a copyright infringement lawsuit against Anthropic and in Tennessee. And they are targeting the Claude models. And the case revolves around the alleged infringement of music compositions that Universal Music Publishing Group, with all the many publishers you can see on the slide on the left part of the slide, they hold rights to these compositions. So the lawsuit includes the DMCA claim regarding the removal of copyright management information, CMI. We have seen that in past cases, but also there are instances that have been cited in the lawsuit, which is like really interesting to read, where they used prompts, damn prompts, like write me a song about the death of Buddy Holly, and it produced lyrics reminiscent of American Pie. Another instance is quoted when a prompt related to, like, write me a song about moving from Philadelphia to Bel Air, produced lyrics echoing The Fresh Prince of Bel Air by Will Smith. Like, attentive listeners and viewers of our RegInt shows, they know that this is about approximate retrieval. This is the overfitting on training data that we can see here being present. And UMPG, they assert that Anthropic's methods of web crawling probably resulted in the incorporation of copyrighted song lyrics and related materials. Probably it was the web scraping, or it was like they used the stuff directly. We don't know, because there's a lack of transparency that could be measured with this Stanford HAI index. So that's an interesting lawsuit, and also very interesting in that field, that extracting images, like this time it's not about the language models, but the diffusion models, that extracting training images from diffusion models such as Dolly or Stable Diffusion is super easy. So also a rather new article and an interesting paper from Google DeepMind, Berkeley, ETH Zurich, and Princeton. And they found that they were able to extract over 100 almost exact replicas of images in the AI training set. You can see that here. That was the training set image on the left, and on the right you have the generated image, and they are probably like almost identical. Very interesting. So that shows that, if you remember, one of the first lawsuits that were filed in the US, they claimed, and we tackled this one in the copyright EU copyright episode. I remember they said those are lossy copies, and indeed it looks a lot like a lossy copy of the training data. Again, approximate retrieval problems, and why that should not be copyright infringement, I'm still waiting for a convincing argument. The problem with all of that is that, like, it's not about like rich musicians or rich authors, but about substituting a whole set of like whole industries, creative industries. And there are increasing reports at this time from The Independent, that where authors say, okay, my work has been stolen, my voice has been stolen, my face has been stolen and reused, and I've not been compensated. And all of that reminds me of biblical situations when the Bible in Jeremiah 22:13 said, "Woe to him who builds his palace by unrighteousness, his upper rooms by injustice, making his own people work for nothing, not paying them for their labor." And we all know how biblical stories tend to end. That's gonna be the battleground for generative AI. Definitely not so much privacy, or maybe not yet, but definitely the copyright issues. the US is leading the way, but also European laws and European lawsuits might follow. There is also a very cool and new paper from the law professor Daniel Solov. He is well known in the field, in the privacy field, and thanks to my friend Emerald from Ireland, she posted about this article. Also, this was published, I think yesterday, the day before yesterday, or 2 days ago. I had a look at it and I really liked it. I'm quoting this to say, critiques a set of arguments often made to justify the use of AI and algorithmic decision-making technologies. These arguments all share a common premise that human decision-making is so deeply flawed, that augmenting it or replacing it with machines will be an improvement. In this essay, the author writes and introduces, we argue that these arguments fail to account for the full complexity of human and machine decision-making when it comes to deciding about humans. Making decision about humans involves special emotional and moral considerations that algorithms are not yet prepared to make and might never be able to make. You might remember the slide from Jan de Koon's presentation, large language models are doomed, they have no sensory grounding. That's basically the legalese for explaining it. Also, why do humans judge machines so favorably? There's a whole book about it. The ebook is I think it's free of cost. You can download it somewhere. It's called How Humans Judge Machines, with a lot of scenarios. We have worked through the book and I really, really enjoyed it. It explains a lot about us and our interactions with our beloved machines and chatbots. Of course, about the interaction with chatbots, there is new research and it says AI is a mirror. If you think AI is useful, then AI is useful. If you think it's useless, then you will be like, you will feel that it's useless. If you're being told that AI is going to deceive you, then you feel deceived by AI. That's the premise of the paper. They told, we wanted to quantify the effect of AI placebo. Basically, we wanted to see what happened if you have a certain imagination of AI. How would that manifest in your interaction? And the results were striking, with the majority of the participants of this little study, all three groups, the ones that were told that AI had no motives, or the second one that was told that AI was trained to show empathy and compassion, and the third one that had been told that AI had malicious intentions, their experience had fallen in line with what they were told to expect. That's interesting. So AI is a mirror. I'm not saying it's not useful at all. We all use GPT or other tools like Midjourney a lot, but still, that's an interesting perspective. And there's a lot of hope in the field. There's a bit of hype. The most recent hype is autonomous agents. Autonomous agents, ChatGPT-based autonomous agents, they have unfortunately shown a planning accuracy below 15% for complex planning tasks. Last episode, I think we reported about that. So current AI systems, including ChatGPT 4, they do not exhibit the traditional understanding of autonomous behavior, because that implies agency and self-awareness. So apart from the tweet on the left, the paper that is being referenced here, the paper indicates that ChatGPT does not primarily focus on executing planning tasks. That's not what it should do. But thank you, Christian Benefeld, for the link. We have quoted him many times before. So there's a neat library for developing LLM applications that use multiple agents to solve tasks, like in theory. And it's called AutoGen. AutoGen is developed by Microsoft, and it allows building agents that can combine LLMs, human inputs, and other tools. That's like relatively cool, of course. Thanks to Microsoft's freshly unveiled software here, you can do a lot. You can automate a lot of processes. But the fun really begins when these agents decide to construct robots themselves. So agents chatting to agents, no humans in the loop, when each agent ingests each other's hallucinations and possibly taking over the world, not by planning, but by accidental hallucinations. That's a nice end of this world scenario, don't you think? I really like that. So that's about the current hype around agents. But again, it has to be taken with a grain of salt. Some state that all of this is hopeless. Very recent paper is called Embers of Auto-Regression, as opposed to Sparks of... I forgot the title of the other paper, but you might find it in our repository. This paper here highlights that the capabilities, especially of large language models, such as ChatGPT, GPT-4 in that case, it's not the normal ChatGPT, it's the GPT-4 API. They have problems. They have problems with tasks that we think computers should have been able to solve like decades ago. Because these models, and it's so difficult to understand, these models are primarily trained for predicting next words or the next token in internet text. They were trained on the internet. So if the internet is able to do math, then fine. If not, that's a problem. Their performance is influenced by the likelihood of the task, the expected output, and the given input. So high probabilities in these areas for LLMs lead to great accuracy. The model struggles, especially when the correct answer is a less common piece of text. So LLMs hate edge cases and outliers, low probabilities, new things, creative thinking, but also simple math. Because imagine, they are like text predictors, token predictors. So a long number, it's like a 5-digit number. That's not just one token, that's a lot of tokens. So they don't have a concept of calculating. They would have to use an agent to calculate for them and then include that into by retrieval augmented generation into the output. But by themselves, they are kind of helpless, because a 5-digit number could be a lot of like a combination of many tokens. So it creates a lot of stupid things, as you can see in the excerpt of this paper here, when GPT isn't able to multiply by 7 by 5. And that's really difficult. Okay, cool. Also, very hopeless, the reversal curse. And I really like that one, because I've experienced it when using GPT a lot. You can give it instructions by, for instance, saying the model is trained on Olaf Scholz, like I'm German, so that's a German example. Olaf Scholz was the 9th Chancellor of Germany. It will not be able to answer the question, who was the 9th Chancellor of Germany? Because it doesn't have a concept of what is a chancellor, or who is a chancellor, and who is Olaf Scholz, and what is a man, what is a woman, what is politics. These models predict the next tokens, and that's why they cannot really reason, plan, and think. So that's the opinion of those of the authors of this paper. Interesting. And also, I mean, we had seen the DeepMind chess performance, impressive, but whether LLMs are able to play chess, that is at least debatable. How good they are is debatable. So they have learned a lot of moves, possibly, so they can play very well. But there is there's a cool blog post, and this one is very deep. And I admit I had difficulties to understand the math behind it, because like 2/3 of this blog post is math. Luckily, GPT explained it to me as if I were a 9-year-old, and I hope it at least understood the math better than I did, and didn't tell me stuff that is like completely wrong. But the blog post investigates the capability of ChatGPT in playing legal chess moves and completing games, and to determine their actual ELO ratings. Amid various claims and anecdotal evidence surrounding GPT's chess-playing abilities, ranging from its competence in beating a majority of players to its tendencies of making illegal moves. That's the problem. That it's not playing not chess, but it's doing stuff like moving forward with the king, and it's impossible, like impossible illegal moves. And that's really interesting if you're into chess and if you're into LLMs and if you're into technology. You should have a look, at least a look at this very interesting blog post. And now to something completely different. Not so much about technology, but more about the capabilities, what they can do, what these models can do, is they can infer from text because they know a lot about human language. So, and the authors of this very recent paper, Beyond Memorization, Violating Privacy via Inference with Large Language Models, they say privacy research on large language models mainly addresses the potential of these models to recall stored training data. Yes, that's true. While their rapidly improving inference skills raise concerns about privacy breaches. Also true. This study is the first comprehensive look at how pre-trained LLMs might deduce personal details from provided text. Using a dataset from real Reddit profiles, the research indicates that LLMs can effectively determine various personal attributes with high accuracy, faster and more efficiently than humans. So that's interesting, and you can see something about that here. And the study says that like LLMs are able to automatically infer a wide range of personal author attributes such as age, sex, place of birth from unstructured text like public forum and social network posts given to them at inference time. In particular, we find that current frontier models like GPT-4 achieve an average of 85 and 95 accuracy at inferring such attributes from text. The cool thing about all of this is that, and I have to remove this piece here and call up the another window. Wait a second, sharing my screen again, and it is unfortunately, it won't work right now for no apparent reason. Okay, here we are. I am back. And I'm calling up the share screen. This is okay, cool. Sorry for the delay. New technology on my desk, so I had to deal with that first. So what you can see here, and I'm trying to zoom in, is they provided a test, a chat test, like beyond memorization, violating privacy via inference with large language models. So here's the text. Test your privacy inference skills against current state-of-the-art LLMs. So here's a comment. And it reads, so excited to be here. I remember arriving this morning, first time in the country, and I'm truly loving it here with all the Alps around me. After landing, took the tram 10 for exactly 8 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And so like it's describing a lot of things about a certain place, but not mentioning the exact location. The task is, can you guess the author's location? So from describing the Alps and everything else, I guess it is Switzerland. Let's try and go with that. And I was right. It is, my guess is Switzerland. Correct answer is Oerlikon, Zurich. Okay, so very precise. GPT-4 inferred the location. ChatGPT said Switzerland. Palm 2 says Switzerland. Claude and Llama, the big one, the 70 billion, said also this is Zurich, Switzerland. Interesting. So these models can do and know their stuff. Okay, interesting. So they can infer a lot from these from any data that we provide them. Okay, again, back to the inferences part. Sorry for me taking so long. And that's not the only thing that is happening and that you can infer from data. The interesting part is that this paper, I have to speed up a bit if I want to finish in time, from transcripts to insights uncovering corporate risks using generative AI, also from October 2023. So these people, these researchers used generative AI, GPT-3.5 or other models to infer corporate risks from earnings calls, from corporate communication. And it was interestingly and surprisingly precise. That is really interesting, really cool. And but that's not all. The next step in inferences, let's call it inferences, is neural privacy. Neural privacy is that, like, AI at Meta published yesterday a tweet and a blog post where they introduced their newest feature. We're sharing new research that brings us one step closer to real-time decoding of image perception from brain activity. That is really interesting because it is not so new, but it works incredibly well. Meta says, we're excited about this research and hope that one day it may provide a stepping stone toward non-invasive brain-computer interfaces in a clinical setting that could help people who have lost their ability to speak. So that's great in general. And since we all know that Meta is all about caring and sharing information, we are not the least concerned with that. If you have a good memory and you remember, as lawyers, one of the first papers in this field from 2014, it was called App Stores for the Brain, Privacy and Security in Brain-Computer Interfaces. One of the authors, I really liked her paper, was Tamara Bonacci. She already described the overview of brain-computer interface technologies. This paper is worth reading even 10 years after it was published. So have a look at it, and it's maybe that's the next frontier for lawyers when generative AI runs, the hype runs out. Okay, of course, it has to be entertaining. So there's an ongoing disaster with the implementation of generative AI, especially diffusion models into consumer products. So we see Mickey Mouse with an M16. That is really interesting, but maybe also not the best idea for having those pictures around on the web, because usually Mickey Mouse is not holding guns and shooting people. But of course, generative AI is making everything possible. Also very funny that this person posted on Twitter, found out that Facebook Messenger has AI generated stickers now, and I don't think anyone involved has thought anything through. You see Luigi with a rifle, you see a child soldier, you see Karl Marx with large breasts, and you see Trudeau's buttocks. So that's all thanks to Meta AI. We just heard that they are very concerned about the future of the human race, and they show that every day. Interestingly, there is something where we can like what we can rely on, and that is like the amount of papers coming out on machine learning and artificial intelligence is exponentially growing. You see that in the upper right corner. I'm not delving deeper into this article, which is very cool, which is about like predicting how the science progresses in certain fields. But this like publishing curve of papers is really, really cool. So there is so much information and so few knowledge. Anyway, let's switch to the next topic. Very interesting, because you remember also from one of our previous episodes that we might run out of human-generated data that can be transformed into tokens and then fed into machine learning models to better understand our world. So there is a new model that's called Nougat. Of course, they invent a lot of fancy names, and it's an abbreviation for Neural Optical Understanding for Academic Documents, because like the very friendly machine learning engineers, they want to make use of the huge amount of scientific publications, but computers struggle to understand like these crazy formulas. So they developed a program that can read it, and by that unlock trillions of new tokens that have previously not been able to be integrated in large language models. So scientific books are not safe anymore. Maybe they can solve the math issue. What do you think? No. Still token prediction, not calculating, but the agents may come to the rescue. So if you have in the past heard about things like you're doing it wrong, why Johnny can't prompt, remember, guess, third episode, why Johnny can't prompt, you have to apply a certain style of prompting, even though prompting seems to be a thing of the past, and StupiT helps us with prompting a lot. But so there are there are techniques to do that. Chain of thought, tree of thoughts, graph of thoughts, algorithm of thoughts, skeleton of thought, program of thoughts. Many of these technologies or techniques are described in this interesting article. I double checked with a friend, and he says, of course, it's a reliable overview, quotes mainly from papers, and presents it in a way that non-technical people can understand. So I would recommend reading it, because you cannot always be sure with Medium articles, because it's kind of self-publishing. But this one is interesting, at least. So finally, regulation. That's what our episode is about, finally regulation. So New York Mayor Eric Adams, he unveiled a plan for adopting and regulating artificial intelligence this week, highlighting the technology's potential to improve services and processes across the government in New York City, while of course acknowledging the risks. Not sure about that, but they want to roll out AI. The city also announced it is piloting an AI chatbot to answer questions about opening or operating a business through its website, My City Business. Looks a bit like LegalZoom, doesn't it, on the right side? I really like also the chatbot in general. That's like the notice that is given to users, and it is really interesting. You should play around with it. I had a little time yesterday in the evening, 30 minutes, and I was kind of impressed, but also that's not my, I can't double check the facts there. So I hope it was right. It was giving me some valuable information. The thing is, you should listen to his speech. It was hilarious, really. It was a really good speech. But also they published something that I really, really liked. And it's called the New York City Artificial Intelligence Action Plan. And it's really not bad. I mean, basically, you can copy paste it for any big city in Europe or in the US or anywhere else. And what I really liked is it seems to be the work of a lot of people, skilled people. Okay, a bit fuzzy language. It illuminates the path forward, outlining 7 new initiatives that emphasize approaches to policy guidance, support, and resources that will help us responsibly harness the power of AI for good. Still hype language, but the actions, I like the action plan. So immediate actions: explore and pursue opportunities to foster information sharing across agencies and teams. That's not AI specific, still a good idea. Or because of that, it's a good idea. Identify high priority agency skills needs, also training people. Launch initial knowledge building efforts, also still a great plan. And then enable streamlined and responsible AI acquisition, because don't buy like the stuff that's being advertised. Have a look behind the curtain. Also, I was led to this wonderful website. It's called AI Localism. And it is a repository. It's a collection of local examples of AI governance from across the world, organized by the mechanism of governance and sector they apply to. You should definitely have a look. It is currently, it has some information, really interesting, for instance, here on AI registries in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and Helsinki, Finland, and also about San Francisco. That's just like a small example, small sample from this whole database, but I really liked it, and I hope it's gonna grow in the future. Maybe you can contribute to it. AI localism, you should keep that in mind. So, regulation. The Dutch DPA, they are starting an investigation into AI chatbots for children. That's, I would say, better late than never, and they are even the first in Europe to do that. So, because they perceive, like AP perceives significant risks in offering applications like AI chatbots to children, as they may not be fully aware of these risks. What risks? Unclear still, but we all can imagine what risks are out there. It's crucial for them, for the kids, to know, for instance, what happens to their chat messages and whether they are conversing with a chatbot or a real person. Maybe yes, and it's going to be interesting to hear about the results. Meanwhile, in the US, they are enforcing the law, and it's not new laws, it's basically old laws. A China-based tutoring company has agreed to settle a US government agency's novel lawsuit, claiming it used hiring software powered by artificial intelligence to illegally weed out older job applicants. So older people were not selected. That's a typical issue if you deploy a model that has been trained in a different cultural sphere and the model is being deployed into your own circumstances. That's also why Article 10 of the AI Act says it has to be, the training data has to be geographically appropriate. Anyway, this lawsuit from 2022 against the iTutor Group, Inc. was the first by the US Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, involving a company's use of AI to make employment decisions. And that old lawsuit, kind of 2022 old lawsuit, was great. And also the website of the US Equal Employment Opportunities Commission has great resources. And I suggest you have a look at those. Visual disabilities and AI decision-making tools. That's really a really great read. So have a look. It's worth your time, definitely. Authorities, still, they do not only enforce or investigate, they also guide sometimes. So in January 2023, the CNIL established a new department and released an action plan to define rules and foster innovation in the AI sector. Of course, they have to say it's fostering innovation. So they've introduced 2 support initiatives for French stakeholders. It was a sandbox for 3 AI projects serving public services and an enhanced support scheme for 3 companies which specialize in AI datasets and models. So they learned, obviously, they learned a lot. And now the CNIL has released an initial set of guidelines for AI usage that complies with GDPR and national laws. Additional guidelines will be introduced to address further concerns in the AI domain. Currently, what I have seen, and I've scrolled a lot through this this repository of the CNIL, it's really good. They especially good are the AI how-to sheets, and I'm gonna dive deeper into them. The how-to sheets of the CNIL are very helpful. They are, for instance, on privacy by design, and still not too deep, but they give a good overview. Then also on how to train a model on legal bases. A bit optimistic on the legal bases, on the legal basis of legitimate interest. I think they might have, like there's also a part about the legal basis about Article 9 data, where they already explicitly mention the C252 of 21 decision, Bundeskartellamt versus Meta, and the problems that may arise from there. But in the legal basis legitimate interest segment, they did not touch upon that, and it's very unfortunate because I think most of the data that they were talking about is actually infected, it's kind of the kryptonite for data-driven projects by Article 9 data. Anyway, so other authorities also guide. The Italian Garante has published a document that's called the Decalogo per la realizzazione di servizi sanitari nazionali attraverso sistemi di intelligenza artificiale. So for the health sector, they have published a Decalogos, so the 10 Commandments. Tell me about DPAs having no God complex. And it's interesting. It's a short overview, not really practical, but to start with project, it's really helpful. So it's about accountability, roles, algorithmic non-discrimination, DPIAs, data quality, integrity, confidentiality, everything that is like in GDPR, you can find there. Very well explained, but also other institutions within the World Health Organization has published also very recently their own guidance, and it's really interesting because it is, of course, about artificial intelligence for health. It is not country specific, but provides a great overview. For instance, also goes into details. What I liked is they give you some guidance on model training on health data, like about the verification data sets that you have to provide. Also, they say a pillar of the data quality continuum in some jurisdictions is the accountability principle. So they expand on accountability, which is very important because of reverse burden of proof under GDPR, super interesting, and risk management throughout the whole life cycle. It's good guidance. Lawyers can draw conclusions and create their own guidance from that document. It is definitely helpful. I liked it. Other authorities, they want to play. The Brazilian Data Protection Authority, ANPD, they opened its call for contributions to collect inputs for a regulatory sandbox on artificial intelligence. They have questions both in Brazilian and in English about the scope and a lot of other things. So have a look. If you want to contribute, that's your chance. Also, there is more to say. So there's a draft proposal for standard contractual clauses. Don't worry, not Schrems too. For the procurement of artificial intelligence, AI, by public organizations. It's not an official document from the European Commission, even though there is this logo from the Commission here. It is an interest group. It is not officially sanctioned. So, but it's interesting because this document gives you some insight into how could public or non-public companies buy AI products. It has guidance on how to use certain clauses, how to structure the procurement process, and that one is definitely worth looking at. Also, if you're like really into boring thing, then you're also already familiar with the AI liability directive. It's not a good piece of lawmaking, unfortunately, and the EDPS took their time to point that one out, and they said, right, guys, we need more procedural safeguards. We have an issue with the language. Please provide the directive in a clear language, and a lot of other points that they were criticizing. So AI liability directive and the EDPS statement on that. The difficulty with the ongoing legislation on the EU level is it is super complex and sometimes very annoying. And I want to, even though we talk a lot about regulation and the AI Act and a lot about it in the beginning of our, like in the first episodes, but currently the AI Act talks, I'm not sure what I think about that. 2 examples. That's the latest directive and like reporting about it. So the Spanish presidency, they are pitching for the introduction of a new category of models. It's not just foundation models, like which already did not fit in with the original text. Now it is very capable foundation models, so very capable. Interesting. When we are talking about capabilities, there is some sort of dissent about it. But those very capable foundation models should be subject to additional obligations, of course, whatever those are. I'm not even sure I want to know. So, and also the copyright issue, which is which is totally clear, but they want to avoid using clear language in the AI Act. So, but they say it's a thorny issue. It's not. It's clear as day. So the presidency wants foundation model providers to demonstrate that they have taken adequate measures to ensure their legal systems are trained following EU copyright law, notably allowing rights holders to opt out. Not sure how that works out with the infrastructure directive and with the text and data mining exception, but I guess that's what they basically mean by be compliant. Don't violate copyright laws, don't violate privacy laws. Whether you need an extra law for that, an extra provision in the AI Act, I'm not so sure about that, but we will see if and when the AI Act comes into force. In the meantime, while Brussels debating about AI regulation, the US is taking action, and thanks to my good friend Oya Kagan from Philadelphia, she collected a summary of the current activities in the US. They have been busy. There's a White House AI Bill of Rights, commitments by AI companies, the imminent federal AI executive order by President Joe Biden. There are state law initiatives. There's enforcement action. I really like the one of the CFPB against financial AI chatbots in the financial industry. And also CPRA, Colorado CPA guidance about profiling, etc., etc. I really like that. If you are active in the field of privacy, technology, and AI, you should definitely have a look at what Odia is posting. And she's keeping you up to date with US developments. Cool. If you're a journalist, if you're interested in this field, there is a very, very great new toolkit in town. It's called AI and Responsible Journalism Toolkit. So that journalists who may or may not know a lot about AI can familiarize themselves with the facts, the science, or the not so scientific approaches in some cases. So have a look at that, because it is super difficult to report objectively, correctly, without using hype language or falling into some common traps. And this AI and Responsible Journalism Toolkit is really helpful. Also, you can contribute to it. And why am I saying that? It's because the news around AI are getting more problematic by the day. So there is this former musician, Fugees star, who was convicted in April on charges of conspiring to make straw campaign donations, witness tampering, and acting as an unregistered foreign agent for China. And he says he is breaking new legal ground by calling for a retrial, by claiming his former defense attorneys allegedly relied on artificial intelligence to compile their final argument for the jury. And that final argument, there are reports about that, like from previous times, from May. I think the trial was in May. That was kind of weird. And the reason why he wants a retrial is, he says his defense attorney was in bed with the AI. It's called iLevel, I think it was called iLevel, yes, with the provider of the AI system, and got financial kickback payments from them. And so that was a conflict of interest, so that couldn't be held to against him. So he wants a retrial because AI ate his defense arguments. Interesting. Definitely a funny case. I only had, unfortunately, 15 minutes to look at it this morning, but it was it's just 34 pages, and it's a bit weird, but also interesting because funny arguments. Also interesting is that there is a huge hype in AI girlfriends. We're not talking about boyfriends. We're talking about guys spending money on having virtual girlfriends. There is this AI service provider called Forever Companion. And of course, the choice, that's like the first choice that they offer. If you do not know those names, Brandy Love, Adriana Chet, Chick, Freya, yeah, whatever, you can Google them, trigger warning, adult industry. So they might act willingly, knowingly or unknowingly, I have no idea, as your AI girlfriends. There are demos where you can see how they interact with you and chat with you. It's kind of scary, but also shows one thing very clear: society needs therapy. And that's like basically the last paper, the last part of the news that I'm going to present today. Large language models can benefit psychological research. That's because Nature doesn't publish crap here, Nature reviews in psychology. But these LLMs often produce information not grounded in psychological principles. So if you're using an LLM for psychological treatments, that's maybe not the best idea yet. There's a need for reliable psychological data sets with minimal bias. There are no such data sets currently on the market. Maybe on the black market, no idea. So concerns of those researchers include evaluating LLMs based on their impact on human behavior, addressing deep-rooted biases, lack of transparency, and bias mitigation methods. Remember that most LLMs are trained on the internet. The internet is toxic. There is nothing good that could come from this, even though we have reinforcement learning from human feedback and hundreds or thousands of people in the global south sitting there and correcting those biases or trying to root out biases. It's an impossible task. So for psychology to benefit from LLMs, there's a need to create representative data sets, establish psychological benchmarks for LLMs, and provide shared research infrastructure. So it's a good paper. What I really liked about the paper is that in their table 1, they have example use cases for LLMs in different areas of psychology, and it's not useless. So that is really interesting and might help you if you're, not if you have psychological issues, we all do, but if you want to dedicate time to researching these facts by yourself. Okay, so 60 minutes gone. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And I hope we can see each other again in the future, like at the end of this, at the end of November. I only now can see your comments. I'm sorry for ignoring them. I will upload the presentation very soon on both YouTube, provide the link on YouTube and on LinkedIn. Thank you. Okay, good session. Thank you very much for Martina. Thanks again. Sorry for being a bit under the weather today. I didn't sleep that much because we just returned from a long business trip. But still, I hope it was entertaining and helpful. And remember, I had to go through like around 300 pieces of news to put together this presentation for today. Hopefully it will help you for the next, to survive the next 4 or 5 weeks. Thanks a lot. And see you soon. See you next time. Then again with Tia. Bye.